after the first of the year. She slipped away for vacation,
Right.
and I don't know that I didn't get a chance to check with her to see if what she's done with that ordinance. So I can't report to you what, if any, suggested revisions she has. But I think she's certainly prepared to try and put that in place. And then with your building commissioner being able to act a little more independently on what he's able to do and clean up, fix up, that kind of thing. And the draft, if you'll note, appointed the town council as the unsafe building board, which would then, and we can probably schedule the conduct sessions either independently, if that's what you choose to do, or maybe even as part of your, after or before town council meetings, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And act within that realm on structures that have been determined to be unsafe. So,
Those items would come to us from BZA.
well, they come from the
They
building.
come from
commissioner.
okay.
Yeah, there's the starting source. So, and a number of early determinations are made under the unsafe building code by the building commissioner. So you adopt this and you put that in place, he's going to get started with a lot of things, and really only sort of the extreme measures or looking for some kind of a ratification does he come before the unsafe building board. I mean, there are certain things that only the unsafe building board can make a decision to do, but there's going to be a number of things that Chuck will have the leeway to do on his own.
Could you tell me that it's being recorded just so that?
Oh. Just want everyone to know that this meeting is being broadcast via Microsoft Teams and is being recorded. Participation in the meeting is your consent to being recorded and to the rebroadcast of the recorded meeting. The recorded meeting will be available for viewing on the town's YouTube channel. Now, everyone in the room and anyone online, please mute your cell phone during the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
And then just to kind of continue, Bill Clevenger probably can chime in a little bit on this. At the county level, we've actually now are taking bids for a third demolition of a building that has been determined to be unsafe. The drawback always before is, where do you find the funds to do these things?
Right.
And even though the plan in some instances is to assess the expenses back against the real estate, if your property is worth $5,000, but it takes $10,000 to demolish it, you end up short. And then, sometimes there's other issues as well. On the county's level, they decided to plug some money in. And so that's why they've now made some efforts to get some things done and find some other people. Probably not going to collect that till real estate taxes, but that's where that's going. Now, I know you guys have, because of the 415 Lakeshore, you kicked in some money a while back.
We established it.
Now, so you have a fund, so you have some funds that I think that, you can use to, process some other properties.
And we've also put it in the budget for next year to add funds to that.
So does the proposed jurisdiction of this unsafe building ordinance include the town proper or the zoning area?
Just the town proper.
So it doesn't extend.
Just the town proper, right?
Not the 2 miles.
Okay.
So, if you, and unsafe buildings, there's a definition of all of those, and you have to understand, it doesn't include, there are some zoning ordinance violations that you would not probably get classified as unsafe.
Um,
If those zoning ordinance violations are in your 2 mile zoning jurisdiction, then you can go into that area under enforcement of a zoning ordinance, if there's such a, if it happens to fit. But, you're restricted to some degree. You have to make sure it's a zoning ordinance violation.
So that, I mean, the property that was an example today would still end up going to Marshall County because it is.
Because the boatsman was in the county, not in the town limits.
Jim,
Right.
I had a question about that comment that you had. If a building is not necessarily unsafe, but it's been abandoned, like no one has been in it for 6, 8, 10 years, whether it's a business hasn't existed there or a resident, is there a way, would we have to create some sort of zoning ordinance that would consider that property blight, or, you know, or is it okay that it exists because it's still considered safe? Like, the roof isn't falling in at this point, or,
Actually, I think abandonment is one of the qualifications for being unsafe.
And public safety also takes care of that.
Public, and did you hear Chuck say public safety also takes care of that?
yeah. So does is there an amount of time you have to associate with abandonment?
Yeah, I think the statute does talk about some abandonment time, or at least it contemplates, you can't have an abandoned property for just a couple of months. You have to have a little longer than that.
But abandonment is more than just vacant and not occupied. If the property is not occupied, but is kept up reasonably,
Yeah,
it doesn't fall
it's
under.
not gonna qualify. But again, public safety
Right.
kind of figures in. The trick bag still to some degree is unsightly does not necessarily mean unsafe. That's a common thing that we battle the people that are wanting to take action. I've seen that now on the county level. I certainly wouldn't want to be living next door to a couple of the properties where people come in with complaints on because they just are unsightly, but unless they fit the unsafe building definitions, you run into, you're not able to really process those like you'd like to.
And there's a myriad of, definitions out there. I looked up a couple and one of them said, whenever a building or structure used or intended to be used for dwelling purposes because of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, decay, damage, faulty construction or arrangement, inadequate light, air or sanitation facilities, or otherwise is determined by any health officer to be unsanitary, fit for human habitation. I mean, that's one definition I found. Another one was unsafe building means a building which is structured unsafe, is unsanitary, is not provided with adequate means of egress, constitutes a fire hazard, is dangerous to human life in relation to its existing use, constitutes a hazard to safety or health or public welfare by reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, or abandonment. I mean, you stretch these definitions out to get a catch-all.
But it implied in it is the idea that this does have to be a structure that is from the ground up. It's not a vacant foundation. It's not a vacant lot with a bunch of cars that are unsafe in it, or the foundation that is.
Well, and you can also use the word premises, like if you've got a vacant lot with cars on it, let's say.
You can have an unsafe property. Yeah, it does not necessarily have to be
A structure.
a structure.
Okay, I wonder if we may want
Well,
And I think that's
rename
in,
it.
and I think that's in the definition if I look at
It's
that.
in the definitions. I told Bill earlier, I would like to see it in the title of our ordinance, unsafe buildings and premises. So they're both there and it is in our ordinance.
That's in the county ordinance.
Yes.
Well,
it's in
that's
the
in a-
county, it's
in
in
the-
Elkhart, and it's also in the state.
Oh, yeah.
It's in state. If you wanted to look at it, you could go to Indiana Code 36-7-9. And you can. Good time.
Chuck, that's a good suggestion. I'm gonna do that.
I think one of the reasons I was bringing up the
Does say
empty
that.
or abandoned property is because we have had a handful of businesses that, you know, have remained empty because the owner won't move on them or whatever reason there hasn't been anything occupying that building. And in some cases, maybe they're not necessarily unsafe, but you have um, the detriment of not having a business occupy that space. So it's just something I was thinking about from a zoning standpoint, if there's a way to move owners to do something with those properties.
I guess my question on that is a building that's, you know, obviously filled with nothing but mold. Because as soon as you step in the door, you can smell it.
Mhm.
Does that make that building unsafe? Because mold is not exactly,
That could be deemed as unsafe.
yeah, I would think.
Not safe for human habitation.
Yeah.
So that would take care of that.
Yeah,
Well, isn't I mean, I would think that also the clause that, safety and, you know, for human safety, health and human safety would encompass a lot of the situations.
mhm.
Can you leave cars on your property for 5, 10 years without moving them?
Well, that's gonna be covered by a separate ordinance, don't we? We have don't you have an abandoned vehicle ordinance?
Yes,
We got
we
an
do.
abandoned vehicle ordinance.
Okay.
If the vehicle is abandoned.
Yeah.
You cannot leave it sit on your property. It's much shorter period of time. But abandoned vehicle is, you know, no tires, no license plate, you know.
Right.
Hudson has wheels on it and you can start it up and move it, then it's really not an
Or you have it
abandoned
parked so
vehicle.
you can't see if there are plates on it. Back, which is, I think, something that,
Yeah.
has been run into a few times.
Yeah.
You can't go on the property to check.
Back in and just show the front bumper.
Sally, as to your point about mold, one of the definitions refers to unsanitary, unfit for human
Mhm.
habitation, or in a condition that is likely to cause sickness or disease.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because I haven't been in a couple of buildings downtown, but I've heard that there's, you know, that there's a lot of mold in it. But I know that, you know, the one that the academy purchased, the old administration building, that thing drove me out. I went down the basement stairs and almost knocked Ed Pinder down trying to get out. We were fighting for the upstairs door. And, but they did mold remediation on it and it's, you know, they deemed it as safe.
one of the enforcement tools that we have not traditionally used, I mean, we've been trying to get orders for cleanup. But it would be a fine, would be, you know, a financial penalty. And on the county level, I mean, that's what we have started to do in certain instances.
Any results on that?
Not really.
Yeah.
But
Are they paying the fine?
that, well, see, that's where it's gonna happen is in some instances, it's out of state, out of touch landowners. And I think until they figure out, you know, that fine's being racked up pretty good, that you might start seeing.
Attached to the lien.
Yeah, and that's what happened is,
Right.
and in some instances, they're able to attach it as to, the real estate taxes that are due.
Mhm.
So,
And at which point, when they go to pay their taxes, they'll see that. it
yeah,
went
now all
through.
of a sudden, whoa, I got a $5,000 extra to pay. Where'd this come from?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
are those fines then built into our ordinance, into our building ordinances or into this ordinance?
This built into this ordinance.
Okay.
Violations may be punished at the rate of $100 per day that the violation exists. But there is a cap according to the statute, so. Can't go on forever. But that's what we're seeing with the property and outside of Plymouth on the county level. It's been assessed a fine. So happens that the owners have deceased, but they had a reverse mortgage going on. And so the mortgage company's been still paying the real estate taxes, so I hadn't gone up for real estate tax sale. And the death hasn't been apparently reported to the reverse mortgage company. They're still making payments, and the daughter is collecting the money, and off she goes. So, but at some point, the reverse mortgage company is going to find out that
Right.
the landowner is deceased, and when the real estate taxes they're collecting isn't going to cut it, then escrow, then
And they take the property back.
yeah, then it's going to change. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, takes some time.
Sure.
What else can we do here today? I mean, we don't have building BCA or plan commission here. I think this is a useful discussion.
I mean, it's a useful discussion. That was the purpose of doing
Okay.
this.
All right.
And to let y'all know that
Right.
we are moving forward and that Jim's been gracious enough to, turn this part of it over to Jeanette going forward. And she'll do the attorney work. And I believe she told me that when we file these, correct me if I'm wrong, when it's filed and we can go after attorney, we will be able to go after attorney's fees, but that there will be a limit placed.
Yeah.
And it's a state limit or something that we can go after. So we'll be paying her, but the amount that she can put into the teeth of the matter is limited, but I think it's a couple grand, so.
Does have some.
Jim, do you know if there's any time when at the point that we're sending out certified mail, there's a cost to doing that every time we have to do that? And do you know if that's ever charged back to the if you can accrue a fee like that? Because, like whether it's a nuisance letter or if we're dealing with one of these properties, we always have to do that certified mail, and that just keeps adding up.
Right. We don't have that in the ordinance. If you want to add that and you think that's something you want to do, we can try and take a look at it and maybe put it in. We don't have it in the ordinance at this point, unless you take some affirmative action, just sending the notice out. You're not going to be able to recover that expense.
Okay. I just wonder because I could see if we have more ability to have it enforced locally with this new ordinance, we're going to be probably having more of that happen. And I know if somebody just sends them on grass for several properties, how that starts to add up quite a bit.
May want to have some of these orders just delivered rather than by certified mail by the town marshal.
Police department. This one for Elkhart talks about reclaiming costs. And they reclaim all actual costs of work by the county and unsafe building premises. and the actual cost of taking the action, as well as an average processing expense of $1,658, which is their average cost to get through the process. So we could go.
Yeah, but is that under a demolition, item?
For any work that's performed and anything done.
Yeah, but you've taken affirmative action to
Right,
do
yes.
something,
That is correct.
and that's the cost you're trying to recover. I think Jenny's just talking about sending out kind of an initial notice kind of thing. I'm not sure that setting that up where you're reading that includes that.
Our
Yeah,
next,
I'm definitely referring to that fee that is the certified letter. In some cases, it's multiple times with the same addresses.
so our next meeting is a week from tomorrow, on the
Right.
23rd. Would we be able to have a final version of that?
Jeanette's not gonna be back by then.
She's not gonna be able to have something until after the first of the year.
Oh, I thought she just wasn't gonna be able to be active with.
She doesn't
situation
want
until
to,
after.
she doesn't want to be active till January 1st,
Right.
but I think her plan is that we have, we've addressed the ordinance to some degree. Well, she'd like to get it passed, but you got to give public notice of it.
Right, but in order to pass it and get public notice, we have to have it written
You
Right.
have to have it filed.
document. So we could have this up to initiate the first of the year.
But you have a draft, and you could, if we wanted, we could, based on this, set up first reading and set up a public hearing. And then whether you want to do first reading or not, but you can always make revisions then after that.
Well, could you make revisions to that draft based upon the input that you've got tonight on a couple of like the fines and things like that? And then at our meeting next week, we could do something with this?
Probably, I might be able to, yeah, but I really was hoping to let her do it since she's
Right.
gonna be kind of handling it so she can have it. She likes to have.
She's got some definite ideas
She's
as to
got
how
some
she
definite
wants to handle it. And I know that she's on vacation right now. She comes back after Thanksgiving. And then I think she told me she had like 6 depositions between now and year end.
She's
She's
kind of busy.
snowed. She's snowed between now and year end. Is there anyone else online that has any comments or wants to add to the conversation? If so, please state your name and address.
I think it's
Good.
just me online.
Okay, Jen. Any comments in the room?
Yeah, I can't say you sound all that great. Hope you get feeling better.
I don't feel all that great.
Kevin, you have anything you want to add?
About how it's going to be looked at with some. I've got buildings. They're in use. Other things is the open buildings. We've got the open lumber bins and other things, which ordinance talks about, it's supposed to be protected from animals getting inside and so on. It worked that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a pole barn on my site, sliding doors, gap underneath. It works for what I need. No one's complained. But
Right.
I don't know how you differentiate what you go after on things. If you start right down the line, then I would be one that would be in line for potential fines or reconstruction. I don't know what it would have to be to bring my things in line. So that I just don't know where the start and stop is.
Good point. Bob, do
Town
you
has
have,
buildings that fall into that category.
pardon?
The town has buildings.
I know.
Fall into that category.
Bob, you got any comments?
Product is.
Okay.
On one of your main targets. Do what I can.
I understand that.
You were talking about mold. This building was full of mold at one point.
but it doesn't knock you to your knees when you first step in.
I don't think there's a building in town that doesn't have mold. I mean, we had mold in the library and we had to clean it up. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It's Indiana. Yeah, we're.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, I mean. Okay, if nobody else has anything, I guess we can,
Yeah, I'm sorry she didn't get a chance to make some revisions before she got.
I understand, yeah.
But we understand that you guys have some interest in encouraging safer buildings that are, that, you know, environments, and so we'll do what we can to get to that spot.
Well, we gotta start, you know, not that we hadn't started somewhere, but this is a start to
Yeah.
bring it to the forefront and move forward. And for dialogue at the same time. I mean, Kevin, your points are well taken.
Thank you.
Okay, this was just a work session, so no need to adjourn. We'll just
Go home.
go home.
Continue working.
Chuck, at 4:15,
Thanks.
and they asked for a building permit? I see an excavator sitting there.
Yeah, not yet. They're,
Are they gonna clean that concrete up first?
yeah, what they're going to do is, take that property and apply for a PUD so that they'll have a total plan for it. Because they're gonna be short on some of the things like parking spaces,
Yeah.
other things that our ordinance requires, so they want to put it in as PUD.
But that excavator's sitting there, there's no immediate plans to put that into,
They're probably-
Is that excavator for them or is that excavator for the trail?
oh, maybe it's for the trail, I don't know.
You don't think it's for the trail? Okay, I just didn't know if they didn't have a place to park something and so they parked it there.
It doesn't look like, I don't think it's not there.
Okay,
It doesn't match their color scheme.
okay.
It
Oh, they're
it hasn't moved in a week.
No, it hasn't.
or more. I mean, it's just. been
Yeah.
parked there.
Is he past the redemption point on that property?
Who, what property we talking about, 4:15?
Yeah.
Yeah, Van Hoff.
Oh, yeah, it's,
Yeah, it's.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
talking, I mean,
I mean, it's sold at the sale. I mean, it's
it wiped
done.
all those people out at the.
Yeah, at the sale.
Yeah. It wasn't it wasn't for unpaid real estate taxes. It went through our foreclosure
right.
proceeding.
Okay.
On College was purchased by a developer.
Right, and they're working on the house.
Right.
I heard they're cleaning that up. Are they, have been
Yeah.
by there?
They have a permit for a deck in the back, I think Chuck said. Was it 614 College?
But well, that excavator here, when I was here last
I
week, and
understand.
I see it's still there, and I thought, gee, maybe
Yeah.
he's applied for the permit and taking away, or is he gonna try and build something higher than 35 feet?
Well, and to get,
At the risk of bringing up a sore subject.
Yeah.
to get a
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem.